Can everybody hear me? No? Turn it up a little? How about now? Okay. Welcome to the memorial tribute to our parents, Fritz and Marianne Wallenberg. It's truly wonderful to see you all here. Each and every one of you has made a difference and have made the effort to come here, some of you from quite a distance. And because Fritz and Marianne were as important to you as you were to them, they both touched parts of your and our lives in a very profound way. As you know, they lived and breathed for music. And most of you here are connected to them in that way. I know my mother was always, sorry, I didn't bring my glasses. I have to find my place here. I know my mother was always thrilled, and my father was very proud when either of them learned that one of their students went on to become a professional musician or somehow kept music in your life, even just for the love of it and not professionally. But some of you are here as friends and neighbors and were also an important part of their lives. Sadly, many of their good friends we wish were here aren't. Melba Sandberg, the Rauchs, Fritz Lowenstein, both Fritz Lowenstein and his father, Alfred. But you are, and we're the happier for it. My parents came to Binghamton from New York City in 1947. Yeah, he had a day job, because Dad's engineering job was transferred here. And given that it was right after the war and he was an immigrant, he was grateful to have a job at all. So staying in New York in the hope of finding something else was just a little too risky. When they moved here, both of them world travelers who had lived in places like London, Paris, Milan, Munich, Berlin, and Bogota, they were a bit taken aback by this small town, and Mom told me she wondered how on earth could I ever live in a place like Binghamton. But as you well know, they made not only a home, but a name for themselves here, and that's why we're all here today. When they arrived, they knew absolutely no one here. And among the first people they met were the Hines, who went on to become some of their closest friends. They lived on Main Street, right near John's Flower Market, if I recall correctly. They are sadly not here, but we are fortunate that their son, George, is here today. Stand up. It didn't take long to make other friends, and some of the earliest, closest, and longtime supporters were the Gitlitzes. And I'm sure many of you remember Morris's endless puns. We are fortunate that Jim and Ruth's son, John, is also here with us today. John, where are you? Stand up. Both George and John studied violin with my mother. George as early as 1947, their very first year in Binghamton. And their presence here today, John and George's, is a testament to the attachments and love of music our parents so easily fostered. I believe that both George and John are still playing. I don't know if any of you know the story of how my parents met. Does anybody know? Apparently, there was an amateur string quartet in New York that met fairly regularly. Occasionally, for one reason or another, their cellist couldn't come. And someone who knew Dad asked him to fill in, which he did, but more and more reluctantly as, and don't tell anyone I said this, they weren't very good. One day, he was asked again to fill in. He really didn't want to go. But guilt at saying no got the best of him, and he went. Lo and behold, instead of the not-so-hot regular violinist, there was a very hot, blonde substitute violinist. And the rest, as they say, is history. But wait, that's not the whole story. This is one of these you won't believe it small world stories. My parents were 12 years apart. My mother grew up in Munich. An early job for my father was playing every Sunday in the Munich English Gardens. I'm not sure if it was a quartet or a larger group, but whatever it was, he went every Sunday and played there, and it was a paying job for him. My mother distinctly remembers wanting to go hear the music every Sunday. So they figured out that when she was 8 and he was 20, they saw each other every week. What were the chances? So welcome and enjoy today's program of beautiful music, followed by what promises to be a delicious dinner. And before I turn to my brother Jim, who would also like to say a few words, I would like to mention one thing. Many people asked, is there a charge for the dinner? Can we contribute to the dinner? Are you going to pass a basket? And the answer is absolutely not. However, if you would like to make a contribution, we ask that you send it to the Binghamton Philharmonic and that you say it is in honor of or in memory of Fritz and Marianne Wallenberg, and I believe that you will be noted as such in the program for the coming season. Jim?
Thank you, Catherine. Well, my beginning is similar to hers in thanking you all for coming this afternoon. It is so wonderful to see so many people here representing all the decades that my parents were in Binghamton. Reading so many names from the past evoking all sorts of memories is truly heartwarming. Even my elementary school violin teacher is here, Sandy Rooning, who always greeted me with, "Hi, Heifetz." Thanks also for putting up with the myriad of emails Catherine and I needed to send out to mount this event. As you know, the logistics were monumental, and we feel this will be a memorable tribute. My portion was basically the music, while Catherine's was everything else. Choosing the music was key to the afternoon. And I wanted to represent my parents in various group incarnations. We begin with the piano trio, as since they arrived in Binghamton, that format was the first chamber music group they had with pianist Sylvia Perlman. String quartet performing with Joan and Sandy Rooning, as well as coaching, was huge. We represent that with a movement performed by former students of my parents. The next two works, the Goltermann and Bach double, represents my parents as cellist/violinist and teachers. By the way, with one exception, who will be obvious, all the violinists were students of my mom's, and almost all the cellists were students of my dad's. The Chopin Berceuse was a favorite of my mom's, as was the slow movement of the Schubert String Quintet. Finally, since my dad was active chorally, we end with two brief choral works by Mozart and Bach. Since my mom stopped playing and teaching when she was 80, I asked if I could begin using her instrument. I've been using it ever since, and you will hear it today. When we asked for anecdotes or letters, many of you replied, which you will see in your program. One in particular not printed is from pianist Professor Walter Ponce, who was in Binghamton in the late 60s and early 70s. He couldn't attend this tribute because he is presently being honored in a festival in Bolivia. His letter was emailed to me after I had informed him of my mom's passing. I felt that it was so special, I wanted to verbally share with you some excerpts from his letter. He writes, "You have no idea how much sadness I feel right now to learn the passing of our beloved Mariana. We did not hear from her last Christmas for the first time in decades, and given her advanced age, we had assumed the worst. Your parents, Fritz and Marianne, were truly extraordinary human beings. My entire family adored, admired, and honored them. We had many memorable, wonderful times, dinners, chamber music playing in your house. I was beaten in chess innumerable times by your father. Mariana was a true blessing from God, a noble human being, a caring friend. She was also my daughter's violin teacher. My wife Alma and I visited her in the seniors' home where she had a little apartment. We were in Binghamton about 6 hours, and seeing your mom was our priority. Your marriage and having children was the complete fulfillment of her greatest aspirations. I hope to someday meet your wife and Joshua and Karina Wallenberg. Someday I would like to tell Joshua and Karina that their grandparents were special, beloved, admired, noble, charismatic, full of life, and that they both lived very long because they loved life so much. They had a ball with their friends and music. I want to tell them how much Fritz and Marianne loved and cared for their 2 children, and how they dreamed of having grandchildren, but son Jimmy was taking too long. I want to tell them how important they became to their many friends and to their community, where they created a symphony orchestra and educated 2 or 3 generations of musicians. Before we begin the tribute with our first speaker and music, there's a bit of business to take care of. Please make sure you turn off any noise-making technological devices, whatever they may be. And if you have cameras, please feel free to take pictures, but without flash. There are 2 musician substitutes. For the Bach double, in place of Mary Jane Keeler, who had to drop out due to family matters, we've added the illustrious Ed Pettengill, who informed me he is working on the piece for a September performance. For the Golterman, replacing an injured Lucy Olson, we have cellist Randy Calistrier. Thanks to both of you. Also, one of the violinists' names, Jennifer Taylor Moody, was inadvertently left out of the program, and our apologies to her. Now, please welcome to the stage our first speaker, pianist and former director of the Binghamton Symphony, now Binghamton Philharmonic, John Covelli. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I was told by all those emails that whatever you do, if you're a speaker, keep it down to about 5 to 6 minutes. As we got closer to the event, the emails changed to keep it under 5 minutes. So to make sure, I have with me my stopwatch, and I'm going to make sure 5 minutes. Okay, I'll keep this up here. Another thing that this is the first event that I've been to, a musical event in which the cell phone situation was mentioned, but in all due respect to the people that are involved with that we're hosting, that please put it on vibrato. Not vibrate, but vibrato. You know, there's so much to say about Fritz and Marianne. They were so kind to come to so many of my performances with the symphony / Philharmonic. In fact, it was the thing that I looked forward to after a concert. If I didn't see them, there would be a phone call the following morning of some sort of a comment, always very nice, but one of the things I will always remember, because it wasn't only once that Fritz said it to me in the audience when I met him right after a concert, but he, instead of just saying congratulations, he would look at me and then he would look at the stage and he said, "Where did you get all those cellos?" It was to him an amazement. He said, "I did so many of these works." He said, "I only had 4 or 5 cellos, and you have 8. Sometimes you have 10. He said, "I don't know where you got all those cellos." So that was his first major comment to me. But otherwise, it was just a wonderful relationship that Fritz and Marianne and I had. After Fritz had passed, Marianne was a constant member of the audience, and we shared many a musical moment, and obviously many wonderful times. Fritz was, of course, just to pick out a few things, I have the whole list of the repertoire that Fritz did in all of the years that he was with the Philharmonic. It's pages and pages and pages. I have it, in fact, with me today for anyone to see. But one of the wonderful things about it, because Fritz not only created choruses, but was always involved with choral works and loved to do them. And one of the things he said to people, and he really tried to attain, was to try to do every Bach cantata that there was. And of course, that's no mean task. As it turned out, what he didn't do on stage for performances, he did in his home on Schubert Street, the perfect place to do Bach cantatas on Schubert Street. It's notable. Notable. You get that? You got notable. It's key. It's notable. It's just like key to the.
I got it.
You got it? Okay, I'm glad. He did cantatas, in fact, that Bach didn't even know he wrote. That's how many cantatas that he did. But very seriously, Fritz and Marianne became icons of this community. And as you'll be hearing in other people's speeches and obviously as you can read, they are no less the icons of this community than a Thomas Watson of IBM or an Ed Link of Link Aviation or even a Rod Serling, of the doo-doo-dee-doo. So, but the point is that the contributions of those men in this community, as we know, literally turned the world around. It was that kind of an influence that came from this community. Well, let me tell you, they should be writing books also and doing documentaries on these magnificent people called music directors and conductors of orchestras, which, like Binghamton, there were 1,200, 1,400 of these kinds of orchestras around the United States, some less, some better, but mainly they are what we call the workhorses of this whole symphonic system in this United States, the greatest in the world in terms of using people all over the country to nurture into the symphonic repertoire and enrich their communities. And so Fritz and Marianne are just as equal icons as those people that I have mentioned. Now, I'm already past my time. Okay, so let me just say that really, when you get done today, you're going to see, as you see by all the chairs here, you're going to hear so much music, and you're going to also visit on that side of the stage. You're going to see a combination of things that if Fritz is watching right now, I'm sure he's going to say the same thing to Jim, and he's going to say, "Where did you get all those cellos?" Thank you very much. Now I'd like to invite on stage my compatriots for the Brahms Trio, so David Heiss and, of course, Jim Wallenberg.